Imagine being a photonic, artificial being in a galaxy run almost entirely by organics. A world where people make decisions based on emotion instead of logic, call chaos a learning experience, and insist that something can be both a priority one mission and a terrible idea at the same time. For someone like Sam, navigating Starfleet just isn't about duty or protocol. It's about figuring out why organics feel first, think later, fall in love mid-mission, and somehow survive on food, rituals, and vibes. This episode of Star Trek Starfleet Academy asks what happened when a being built to observe is forced to participate, to understand not just how organics live, but why they are the way they are. Glitter, feelings, bad decisions, and all. And if that sounds messy, emotional, and deeply unscientific, well, welcome to the Federation. This is Treknicity.
Welcome to Treknicity, a Star Trek podcast, where we explore the Star Trek multiverse, one mission at a time, more or less. I'm your host, Patrick Murray, and joining me are the exhausted crew of the USS San Dimas, the jocular James Motter's Head, and the Larkish Lars Senza. Why do you write this stuff, Lars? Oh well. Tiff McKee is on vacation. Kat's out sick this week. But luckily, joining us for this episode, because it's clear she's either forgiven Lars for rush hugging her at Comic-Con, or she has no memory of our last interaction. Because she's a glutton for punishment. It's the Jocund.
The Jocund.
Jocund?
Jessie Earl.
I don't even know what Jocund means. I will say, Lars, you giving me a hug at Comic-Con was a highlight of the con. It was really great. So.
Yeah, look, I appreciate it, but I was just like, I bum rushed you. Like, I got so excited.
No, it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was really nice.
It's like one of those scenes from a movie, like, you see the on the football field, you see the receiver with the ball. He's like, I got it, and the linesman goes. It's like, what happened to Jessie?
No, it was very, very sweet. I really enjoyed it. My friend was also found it very sweet. Gene, who was with me. So yeah.
I was bouncing up and down. Yeah. So just so you know, okay, in episode 3, okay, Patrick hit me with the word lambastic, and I think I remember what it meant, but I was like, I think I need a dictionary because I think he just called me a block of cheese. But the words jocular, larkish, and jocund are all synonyms for the word mischievous.
Oh, I like that. I'm gonna use Jocund now. Yeah.
And look, I even played to Patrick's love of all things alliterative. And he still busts my chops over it.
Because I can.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I?
Why have friends? Have friends if you can't give them shit?
Yeah, true. I can't.
So, in this episode, we're going to talk about the 5th episode of Starfleet Academy, series Acclimation Mil. So yeah, since that's Sam's full name, we're doing a Sam episode.
And now join us as we warp into spoiler territory. You've been warned. And not warmed.
Could be warmed. So
Could
warm.
So warm.
No, please don't do that. All right, so we're going to do something a little bit different this time. Normally, our episodes involve doing a very long-winded breakdown of a play-by-play review of each and every episode. We go beat by beat and moment by moment. We're going to do a little bit different this time. I am going to try to give you a 60-second non-spoiler plot summary. Wish me luck. This episode follows Sam as she reflects on what it means to exist as a photonic being in a galaxy full of messy, unpredictable organics, while serving as Cask's emissary to Starfleet. Through her narration, we're reminded that Priority 1 missions don't always look heroic. Sometimes they look like cadets, chaos, and a surprising amount of glitter. That was fun. As Sam questions organic behavior, she's pushed into new territory, enrolling in a class called Confronting the Unexplainable, which explores everything from conflict and desire to why people stare at each other while eating snacks. That was fun. Did anybody get what Caleb was eating in that scene?
No.
Oh my goodness, we'll come back to it. Okay. The episode blends humor and curiosity as relationships begin to spark, tensions rise, and Sam tries valiantly to make sense of connection. The journey leads her into the legacy of Benjamin Sisko, another emissary whose story is wrapped in faith, sacrifice, and unanswered questions. With the help from history, virtual archives, and Professor Isla, played by the amazing Tawny Newsome. I don't know if y'all caught that one. Sam starts to understand that organics aren't defined by rules, but experience.
Time. 1 minute's up. You lost.
Well,
go ahead, finish.
Between cultural rituals, experimental cuisine during an interesting dinner ritual involving Kellerick, Ake, Reno, and the Doctor, questionable music choices, maybe the theremin, and one very ill-advised night out, the episode asks whether purpose is something you study or something you survive. In
Take
short,
that back. The theremin is awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love the theremin. I don't know what you're talking about.
It was the weird flute crap.
Kellerick's weird flute.
Yeah, it is. But the thing is, I always remember Sheldon playing the theremin on Big Bang Theory. So that's one where it gets me. So, in short, it's an episode about destiny, discovery, and the bold Starfleet tradition of learning absolutely nothing until it's gone horribly wrong. Let's get into the discussion points.
What does it really mean to be an emissary in Star Trek? So Sam's role as Cask's emissary in Starfleet invites comparison to the one and only Benjamin Sisko. Is an emissary defined by duty, belief, connection to others, or by how much chaos they survive before snapping?
I think the answer to that is yes.
Probably.
Just to start this here, like what I love most about this episode is it's using Sam to kind of create that connection to Benjamin Sisko and having that conversation about what does it mean to be an emissary and the roles assigned to people. Because as we kind of learned with Sam, she's been assigned this role by her people to try to integrate back with humanity. And so she is their emissary. And it's a role that was assigned to her, and she's trying to figure out what is, we even learned in episode 1, I think she's only 2 weeks old, 3 weeks old or something like that technically. And so it's who is she? And I like that we get to see a look at her society, the people her makers, who are not like her. They're energy beings, they're photonic energy beings, and so she looks like a human. And so it's the sense of she's trying to find out who she is, while also being related to this photonic society, but also being put into human society. And how is she going to find her own identity when she has this sense of she is told what her destiny is, what her purpose is already, her role is right off the top. And so I like this idea of she's trying to find her own identity while in between these worlds. It's a very Star Trekian theme all the way back to Spock, right? And it's also a very trans theme in a sense, she's kind of pushing back against the role assigned to her to a degree and trying to define it for herself. And I like that it relates it to Benjamin Sisko, who is a character that obviously had a very similar thing in Deep Space Nine with him being an emissary. But what I love that this does is it doesn't use the connection to Benjamin Sisko to just be nostalgia, to just have this whole episode just be about nostalgia and just talking about nostalgia. Other Star Treks have done that, I think, a lot, where Strange New Worlds very much so, where it's just we're gonna do the thing that we did before again because we thought it was cool. We're gonna do a holodeck episode again or whatever. Here though, it's about community and connection and the looking back to the past briefly to see how it connects to the future, and it's trying to say something new with it. And I think what I love about that most is it kind of does two things that I really love. Is one, it's using Star Trek as a franchise that has history in a really smart way. Because often I think franchises today, again, you fall into nostalgia, but this is an episode that is using the history of the franchise to tell a story that can only be told within Star Trek the franchise. you couldn't do this with an original work, right? If you had just made this a completely original show, not Star Trek in the name, you couldn't have made this episode. And I really like that is like using the franchise's history to say something. And then also, because this episode's written by Tawny Newsome, and Tawny has always been very open and vocal about how she talks about like being a Black woman and also being biracial as well, and like how she has a lot of connection to Deep Space Nine because of that, and how important Avery Brooks was to bringing a textual conversations about Black community into Star Trek. Like Star Trek has always had a very big history within the Black community, Nichelle Nichols obviously being a very important part of that, but on screen Blackness was often very tokenistic, and Avery Brooks and Deep Space Nine really brought like a rich sense of like bringing in conversations about the Black community to the fore, whether it be metaphorically or it being very obvious in things like past tense, talking about homelessness and how Black people are often very homeless and how Black people sort of lead the charge in that, and Sisko sort of taking on the role in that sort of time travel episode. And then also the like episodes like Far Beyond the Stars and things like that. And so I love that this episode sort of takes that history, and obviously Sam is also played by a young Black girl, the actress. And so it's like it's using this metaphor of like understanding history and understanding our place and looking to our ancestors to help inform where we are in this moment. And I love too, the last thing that I'll mention is that we learn all of this, like we don't get like, it would have been nice to get an Avery Brooks cameo, right? But and I'm sure Avery Brooks didn't want to come back and do anything. He's kind of off doing his own thing now, which is, you know, perfectly within his rights. But it was nice to see. It was honestly, I think thematically it worked better that we never get to see Avery Brooks here, that we get to see all of this through Jake Sisko. And it was just such a beautiful thing to see him kind of relating the story to her about his father, because it kind of shows how it passes through the generations. And it was such a beautiful scene and evocation of that, and him saying like emissaries are have this hard rule because they build bridges across communities, but to be a bridge you have to kind of understand yourself. And it's such an evocative way to talk about belief and connection to ancestors, religion, being an emissary, how do you try to build bridges across community, which is what Starfleet and Star Trek is all about. And I just thought it was just so beautiful in evoking all of those things in this episode. It's such a complicated 100%. Episode and does it so well. Sorry I ranted for so long, but I just like I love this episode so much for that. So sorry, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
That's all the time we have for Treknicity.
I am so sorry.
Sorry. No, that's why we got you on here, because you can go for a long time.
I can go forever. Yeah. I passed the baton.
Well, I was thinking about how Sam relates to her makers and to everybody else. I had a realization. If this wasn't in Star Trek, this would be Mork and Mindy, because she's Mork, basically.
just needs the egg.
Yeah.
I think she could pull it off. Yeah, there we go. Reboot Mork and Mindy.
I also love that she's praying. I love that she's praying to Sisko at the end too. Like this whole thing is like she doesn't deal with intangibles very well, and at the end of the episode, she like ends up being someone who is praying to Sisko. I thought that was just a really cool. I like recontextual, because we see her monologue through the whole episode, right? And she just like recontextualizes it, the whole monologue, into being, oh, she's praying to Sisko, which I thought was, and as someone at the beginning of the episode, she says she doesn't do well with intangibles. She needs hard facts for her to choose to pray is a change for her, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah, and in the end,
packed in a ton of character development for Sam in this. I mean, before this episode, I found her quite annoying, if I'm honest. But I think towards the second half of this episode, there was something quite childlike and endearing I found about her character. And it's one of the things, after watching the episode for a couple of times, I didn't actually really appreciate that at first. This photonic is only 217 days old, and it took me a couple of goes round to kind of truly understand the methods in which she was going about learning it. And it was almost like childlike in the way that they portrayed it. And I thought eventually I got there in the end, but I thought that was quite beautiful in terms of the way that they've woven that story around, in the sense of a couple of examples of that I think is the storybook that she sat around with the cadets, learning about Deep Space Nine, learning about Benjamin Sisko and how he came to be the emissary of the prophets. I thought that the explanation and them understanding and learning that was really beautifully done in the end. At first, as a diehard Trek fan, I was like, what the hell is going on here, right? Why are we making this like a noddy style explanation of Deep Space Nine and Captain Sisko? But I was like, I tried to just put my mindset in the way that younger generations would actually learn, and especially somebody so young. I mean, she's less than a year old.
Yeah.
So it took me a couple of goes, like I said, and I eventually kind of got the whole meaning behind it. It's a completely beautiful episode in my opinion.
The artwork in that storybook too is really beautiful too. I love that artwork.
Yeah.
Plus, you have to remember we're dealing with this is the Sisko is 800 years prior, so there's maybe one person in living memory that can remember that far back.
Yeah. The other thing too I liked is that there's not a concrete answer here, because I think we were talking about nostalgia, right? I was talking about that, and I feel like a lot of impetus with the franchises like this, as we see franchises starting to grow, like Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel, whatever, that they tend to want to like fill in the gaps of things. People are like, oh, can we get a Romulan War TV show? Or like we're getting, Strange New Worlds or Discovery, which is like we're gonna do a prequel to Kirk. Or like now Section 30, the second 31 movie, as bad as it was like, oh, we're gonna tell one in the Lost era that was between TOS and Next Generation. It's like all this gap filling, and like every question needs a definitive answer. And what I like that this episode kind of says is that we shouldn't want the answer to, did Sisko come back? What happened to Sisko? The point of 100%. The story, the point of the story is to sit with, like, what does his story mean to you? And I think that is really, really important in saying, like, no, we don't need a definitive answer to this. There's not a quick, like, point on it. It's a what does the story evoke for you? What do you get out of it? What does he mean to you as you look back at your ancestors? And I thought that was just again a really cool idea that this episode wrestled with.
For me, I think one of the greatest part of her defining what it means to be an emissary is the fact that we see her acting as that role of an emissary between the Castians and organics, without it being on the nose. As she's teaching them about Sisko, she's teaching them about the difference between who she is and who they are, while also connecting them to their own past. And that was really good. And one thing you said about sort of bridging the two worlds, one thing that popped in my head about that is that you can't be a bridge between both worlds unless you have a foot in both. And that's exactly what it is. She is very much trying to appease her makers and do the job that she's been set out to do, while at the same time having to learn all of this by herself, what it means. She's having to learn what it means to be a photonic, while at the same time what it means to be an organic, because they're looking on her, they're tapping her to be that resource to be able to determine whether or not they feel that they can trust organics again to enter their sphere. And you end up being taken along for a ride where you learn without even realizing that you're being taught.
And I also really like that, going off of what you just said, like Aka, I can remember Aka. She has that one line to her Sam at one point being like, oh, like you need to, it was something along the lines of, you can't be an emissary if you don't know who you are, right? And so it's like, oh, if you have your foot in both worlds, like who are you to be that bridge? You need to like learn yourself. And that reminds me so much of Spock's story, right? Like Spock in Star Trek was like, in the original series, he was someone who was pulled more towards being a Vulcan. But in the movies, he got pulled towards maybe learning a bit more about accepting his human side. Like he stopped the Kolinar and wanted to be more with Kirk and everything. So he was actively pursuing being more human. And then by the time we got to Star Trek 6 and then Star Trek 2009, he kind of had come full circle, and in Next Generation, as we saw as well, come full circle and been like, I am both. Like, logic cannot be the beginning, was it's just the beginning, was not the end. And he sort of sits in both worlds and becomes that bridge to the point where we see unification. He unifies Vulcan and Romulan societies, and he's able to be that kind of emissary between those two worlds and bring them together, be that bridge. And so I think we're seeing the start of that here with Sam, in a same way that like really relates not just to Sisko's story, but to Spock's story as well.
That's actually a really good point. And one of the things that I feel is really important to her being able to learn not only what her role is in this entire affair of trying to be an emissary between the Kaskians and organics, but she also has to not only learn what it's like to be an organic, she has to learn what it's like to be a young person. And with that, she has to learn all of the idiosyncrasies of what it's like to be, a young person of all of these different races. And we're done. They kind of really tell a good point of that, and they have a really good example of that with the idea of Priority 1 missions, which of course is code speak for let's go out and commit some shenanigans.
Fuck shit up.
Yeah,
yeah, very priority. Yeah,
exactly.
James, start at 12 drinks.
Yeah, James, why don't you go ahead and take us into our next discussion point?
Yeah, so the next discussion point is, are Priority 1 missions actually about importance or just Starfleet vibes? So between glitter vomiting Kionians, ill-advised bar trips and cadets calling everything mission critical, this episode asks whether Starfleet culture encourages responsibility or just gives chaos a fancy label.
Depends on who writes the episode, to be fair.
Yeah, it really kind of does. Well, I think the other part of this episode is we get, because it kind of ties into like the stuff going on with Kelrick, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't trust Starfleet really, and he doesn't trust Ake at all, and he is coming to like open up and to trust others, and to there's that tie into being someone who, like, Kelrick is someone who's very like, I need rules, I need specifics, I need this way, and anyone who does not fit in my conception of the rules is wrong. And so he's learning to trust Starfleet, but he doesn't trust Ake because she broke the rules of Starfleet. And that you get that like outburst at the end there where he sort of like runs away, which, by the way, the whole scene with them doing the ceremony, very, very funny. It was hilarious. Brilliant. I was dying the entire time. With the doctor like doing the little horn things.
The little megaphones.
Yeah.
The little megaphones.
And Jet Reno going, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, and doing some kind of Queen Elizabeth II accent with alongside it, which was that entire scene was brilliant. And despite the fact that it was a subplot, it was one of the key kind of
thematic threads.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, and so Kelrick at the end, he flashes at it as Ake and says like, you broke the rules, and that's why I don't really believe, like, I don't trust you. And she has to say like, trust, like, you think I broke the rules, but you need to, and it's kind of the same thing that Sam learns too, right? Sam learns to just stop being so like, I need a specific answer, and actually I'll learn to sit with a more, spiritual sense of the world, and even praying to Sisko. Kelrick learns to be like, just because Ake broke the rules of Starfleet and left Starfleet, that doesn't mean she was betraying its ideals. And that there's a difference between the letter of the law of Starfleet and the belief that Starfleet embodies. And I think that that's really a cool thing for this episode to show, in so many ways. And it kind of goes back to like what I really loved this show for, and if we're tying in Deep Space Nine here, because the show is talking about Deep Space Nine, is Starfleet Academy, I think, is doing a really good job from very first episode, focusing in on how the people who are in Starfleet have failed sometimes its values. We had Ake literally stealing Caleb from his mother as a child. And so, like, as an institution, Starfleet has failed. And so it needed to change to be something better and say, what are our values? How do we shift to be what this institution needs to be for these kids, and how these kids help us reignite what Starfleet stands for. And I really like that, and I think that speaks to today, like what we need to see today in our world, which is like we are seeing America and so many other institutions doing really horrible things, and it's because they have this, like, they're trying to reassert, you know, the norms of our culture very violently, being like, we're all white people, get all immigrants out, we're all men, you need to be manly men, like all of this really big fascism to do these things. And so we are fighting, I think so many people are fighting to be like, how do we hold on to what the values that we have always understood while we're also seeing the institution fail, and how do we reignite them and really hold on to what our values stand for? And so I think that this show really stands for that, and that's why I think that the show doing a Deep Space Nine episode is so good, because Deep Space Nine also did that too. It was like Starfleet failed its ideals some ways, but the weirdos on the edge of the galaxy uphold the values of Starfleet, even when Starfleet itself fails to uphold those values. And I thought that was a really beautiful connection thematically.
Jessie, question for you, Jessie. Just in terms of the take that in terms of people on social media who bandy the word woke round like it's completely gone out of fashion, what would you say to those people now who firmly believe that Star Trek has not been woke, never been woke, and it's just suddenly a thing that's happened overnight?
I think they don't understand. I mean, a lot of people who are yelling about woke are complaining about like Star Trek not being for them, and not right now, where it's like Star Trek is a thing that should change and evolve and grow. And what those people want is a comfort blanket Star Trek, of like Star Trek that doesn't challenge them anymore. Where like
Season 3 Strange New World.
Yeah, exactly. They want something that doesn't challenge them, doesn't make them think. They want like comfort blanket Star Trek, and like Star Trek should challenge you. And to challenge you, that means it needs to change with the times and be with the times that it's speaking to. And so there's that element of it. That's what they really mean when they're complaining about woke. But if they actually are like, Star Trek was never woke, like of all the one thing that like woke generally just means like being aware of systemic pressures and the ways that our culture like harms people, and it comes from the Black community as well, and it was reclaimed to like try to get people to ignore these conversations. They made it a bad term. So woke is not a bad term, but like they the one element of like when they complain about woke that I think they like there's some level of critique is like the performativity of certain things, where it's like a lot of corporations and companies that make art or whatever, there's a lot of performativity. It's like, oh, we'll have a token trans person in the background, a token non-binary person, a token Black person, token whatever person in this, but we won't actually speak to their community, which I think Starfleet Academy is very much speaking to their community. And they'll also and like as we're talking about the Black community in this episode, but also I think like speaking to like, oh, like sometimes it can get preachy and sometimes get very like over the top with this messages. And I'm like, do you not understand Star Trek? How Star Trek has always been fucking, excuse my language, the most preachy like show in the mainstream. Like you've had Captain Kirk literally like reading the Constitution of the United States and saying, you don't understand this. He literally says in one episode, you've slurred the meaning of the words of the Constitution to a character. And I'm like, that's the most preachy, on the nose thing you can do. And it's Star Trek has always been very preachy. So like, I think there's sometimes conversations we had about some episodes being too over the top with his messages. I think of like, there's that Doctor Who episode, Orphan 55, which is a bit like preachy about like, oh, it's environmentalism message that I thought didn't really work. So I think there's criticism that you could talk about, like how to nuance and tell a message. But of all the shows to complain it being overly preachy about its messages, Star Trek is not the franchise you can say has never been preachy. You know what I mean?
Oh no, 100%. I think there's a couple of things people I know people will poke at in this episode. The undercurrent relationship that's forming clearly between Jaden and Kyle, for one,
or even Jaden's clothing choice.
Oh yeah, wearing a skirt.
It's a nice fit.
Yes, I thought the skirt was great. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love the skirt. The token 32nd century drag queen in the club. I think someone will clearly poke.
Speaking of, I forgot that is Jackie Cox. Sorry, I know her as her actual name, Darius Rose. So just to let everyone know, Darius was in my movie Identities. So I know
Right,
Darius
yeah.
by Darius's actual name, but Darius is most known for playing Jackie Cox, the drag queen from RuPaul's Drag Race, and obviously she does her own shows, Jackie Cox. So I know her, and literally I watched this episode, and she's a big Trekkie. She's a huge Trekkie for a very long time. So I emailed her the second I saw this episode. I'm like, you bitch. You were in Star Trek and you didn't tell me, you jerk. So I was so proud of her. Like, I know that means a lot to her. She's a huge Trekkie as well, so that it was a big deal for her to be in this episode. So.
Yeah, honestly, over the last couple of months, it's been quite a revelation because I've met so many drag queens on TikTok, and I had no idea the correlation between drag artists and absolute nerds.
Mm-hmm.
It's a higher number than anyone would care to admit, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fabulous. I love that. But no, I think jokes aside, I do genuinely think people who are anti-woke will definitely come at those two very subtle scenes. I would say it's not like it's in your face. The way that they've portrayed it as part of this episode, I think it's really subtly, tastefully done.
Yeah.
It's not forced. It's perfectly natural with the setting that they're in, and it's developed that relationship between Kyle and Jade. And you've seen the little subtle hints at where that's been going all the way through the last 2 episodes.
It's so funny because it's always a hard balance. Because I've even seen, because obviously the anti-woke people are always going to rant at just the sight of a queer person in a thing. Like, oh God, it's woke because I had to think that queer people exist. Oh no.
Yeah, we're spreading the gay agenda again.
Yeah.
Oh no, are those 2 males gonna kiss?
Oh no.
No, don't do it. Oh,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Let's find out Tuesday's tacos.
But they always do that. I've also seen the flip side where I had someone ranting at me that they were just like, oh, Strange New Worlds is so straight. And that was like after episode 2. And I'm like, Jet Reno's there. And they were like, oh, well, Jet Reno isn't shown to be lesbian. I'm like, give it a second. Episode 3, oh, they're talking. Jet Reno are together. We see them together. We should have them expressing love to each other in a very domestic way. And so it's like, give it to episode 3. Like, there'll be queerness. And then they're like, well, none of the cadets are queer. Was the same person. I'm like, give one more episode and you'll see Jaden with another, like it's been 3 episodes. Give it time. Like there is this thing of like there's a balance to be had, right? Of like, I get it. I understand Strange New Worlds has like run away from queerness so much in its 3rd season. So like, I get it. I understand not trusting Star Trek at this moment, but like, give something time to develop. So it's like there's the anti-woke people, like even the sniff of something queer, they'll get angry. And then there are some people that's like, and I'm not angry at these people, but I'm like, just give it a little bit of time to show the queerness, because then you can develop these characters and get to express it in a kind of a normative way. And I thought that and I think that the way that the show has done that, where it's like what I love most about Jaden is the show makes clear that he's gay, and you cannot miss it. Like, there's a whole sequence where he's dancing with it. Like, you will not miss that this character is gay, but it is not like, oh my God, there's a big gay coming out scene. But it is just a natural way to show, like, no, he's definitely gay. You're not going to miss it. You can't ignore it. It's not coded. Yeah. It's not like queer coding. It's like, no, he's definitely gay, but we're not going to hit you over the head with it. And I thought that was a very good balance.
Yeah, he doesn't walk in and say, I am Jaden. I am the gay Klingon that is gay.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, we're not queer coding it. There's no indication. Like, he doesn't suddenly walk in with a rainbow colored baldric, you know? I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, even it doesn't even have to be that overt. Like, there's been shows where it's like this character's gay, but like if you don't want to acknowledge that, you don't have to pay attention to it. But we'll say he's gay off screen. Like like the big example I give is like Valkyrie in Thor. Like in her first appearance in not Love and Thunder, the other one of Ragnarok, like they like announced like she's the first bisexual character in the MCU, and like there's little hints in the movie where she like kind of like looks at another woman for a second, but like if you didn't pay attention to that, you would miss it entirely. And they do that so they can say we have the first bisexual character in the MCU without doing the actual work of like any risk of people being able to like, oh, there's a bisexual, like people can ignore it if they want to, and that's not a way to get people to like see through bigotry or to challenge people. Whereas in this show, it's like there's no queer coding. It's not just like he's hinted at being gay. Like it is very overt. He's dancing with a guy. It's a plot point. And it comes up in later episodes as well. but it's not like we're stopping the episode to be like, look, he's gay sort of moment.
Yeah, the this particular discussion point does kind of hinge on whether we try to determine whether Starfleet is a culture of responsibility or if it's just a pretty label. And it's the same thing. Like, I think what was really good is that it showed that we had a lot of wonderful a lot of wonderful exposition about these characters and their values without it being like, without getting the slap in the face with the giant fish.
Yeah.
We just
the gay fish.
Me and now I got my wish, cause I know that I'm a gay fish, yo. Motherfucking gay fish. I'm a fish, yo. Going on a gay fish. It's alright, girl.
Called it. And that was it. And I'm like, okay, we'll see where this goes. Who cares? And that's the beautiful part about good storytelling when you are trying to get a point across, is that when you make the point without having to make the point, you've done it right.
Yeah, I've loved the contrast of being serious in the serious moments and where it's counted, and this show not taking itself too seriously all the way through. I've loved that contrast so far, and I think it's balancing itself quite well.
Yeah, I agree.
What about you, Patrick? How do you feel about the point that they made, given that these are students, they are trying to learn to be Starfleet officers, they are trying to rebuild effectively something that has been gone for a long time because of the burn. How do you feel that they treated the concept of the priority 1 missions being effectively an excuse to get up to no good?
Don't really have a lot to say on that one. It's the whole point here is they're still kids and we're gonna do teen shit.
Yeah,
it's unavoidable. But having that and mixing that with some serious points, some reflection, where you get a character development between scenes of super drunkenness, a bar fight, and vomiting glitter.
I loved it all. I loved the glitter vomit. That was awesome.
Like, why not just have glitter vomit?
Because it's like, I mean, anybody
anybody
who knows anybody knows that glitter is the herpes of the craft world. So it's like
there's just one painting I did, which is literally covered in glitter.
The fact that he just oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful. You know, so
I make a joke and throw glitter in the air here, but I'm not that masochistic.
Yeah, true. So that being said, let's kind of go on to our next discussion point, which is this is largely centered at Sam herself and whether or not she has the ability to truly understand desire and emotion. So the point is, can an artificial or photonic being truly understand organic desire and emotion? Now, of course, this is in the context of discussing it as Sam being the photonic in this organic world, but you could also level this at any artificial being that has popped up in Star Trek. Namely, for me, it comes to mind as, of course, Data. Even
and the Doctor himself. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And even Spock in some sense in the original series.
Yeah.
True. So, through classes like Confronting the Unexplainable, Sam confronts biological impulse, attraction, and social behavior. Is emotional understanding something you can study, or is it something that has to be felt, even if it's gone badly?
What I really like about this is it kind of relates to the two ways that we've seen artificial kind of beings in Star Trek. We've seen a bunch of artificial beings throughout Star Trek in a lot of different ways, but the two main ones are Data and the Doctor. And the Data kind of faced institutional prejudice from Starfleet, but was given support by his crew members. By like Picard was always there to be like, I'm here to help you like learn to be more human and to grow and to like learn about us. And so Data kind of had that Pinocchio vibe of like learning to be a real boy. But then we had the Doctor. And in the Doctor's case, and we saw him even reference this last episode. He says in the last episode when he's doing the debate club, where he says something like, I had to argue myself into being, where he learned to be more human on his own. And Janeway, well, no, it's true, because Janeway was very prejudicial against him. Like it. Let's be very honest about like Janeway did not see, and I think this is not a knock on the show. Like this made Janeway interesting, in that she didn't see the Doctor as a human and had to repeatedly be confronted by the Doctor saying, "No, treat me as a human," or like see his personhood in a way that Data never really did. And so like we kind of had those two ways for these two characters, like Data and the Doctor, to like have to face prejudice, both personal and institutional, in their ways. And Sam here now is in a position that's slightly different, in that Starfleet is now the institution that is trying to guide her into becoming her full self, but it's her parents, essentially her makers, that are the institution, like forcing her to try to be a specific thing, to be a tool for their use. And it's like and I resonated this as like as a trans person, of like having, you know, people, the world, like parents or people try to tell you who to be, and there's like, you need to be this thing for me rather than be yourself. And so I think like Sam is something, she is learning how to be a person through Starfleet and through getting to know other people and getting to know history, getting to know community, getting to know like where the history of where she comes from through Cisco. And I think learning that lineage is like very important to learning emotion and learning what it is to be a person. And so like I thought that this is like, it's a new shade of a similar story we've seen with Data and the Doctor, and I thought that was really cool.
You know, the thing for me, when I was kind of going back over this, because I rewatched the episode a couple of times, because writing the episode, really, in order to do it, you have to really go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and it's not like you're just sitting down watching it and going, oh yeah, it's watch, stop, watch, stop, watch, stop, and at those stopping points, making notes, and suddenly realizing, you know, when I was writing down the discussion points, I was thinking, okay, I think she can learn. I think she can learn emotional intelligence through. It's not. I mean, it's something she has to observe, but I still think it's something that she can learn through her own methods. And a lot of this comes down to one thought I had was, imagine, you know, years later, after Data has become, you know, comfortable with using his emotional chip and not, you know, not just switching on and off like he was in First Contact, but imagine he's sitting there and suddenly he bursts out into tears for no foreseeable reason, and it's because after all these years he finally understood the sadness and the emotional weight of losing Lal. You know, I mean, imagine again, I mean, I'm going through grief myself right now, and for me, the grieving emotions, other than the initial shock and the realization of the finality of the situation, the emotions have been very kind of one-dimensional. There has been absolutely no depth to them, but there will come a time when those emotions will grow and they will take on a life of their own, and it will affect me in ways I can't even anticipate right now. So the same thing, you know, Sam is having to observe everything. She is having to absorb it both on a digital level as a photonic being, but also on a more tangible level as something that exists in a three-dimensional organic world.
And I think that's what we all kind of do too, right? We all like have our own internal life, as you were saying, with like grief and like change. Like we have our internal life and we have the world that we exist within, and how those two things kind of come into conflict with each other and mesh with each other. And like, yeah, she expresses it as like, I like to see things as tangible, like binary code, essentially. Like I like to see things in like ones and zeros, like very this or that, or very like clear, and not dealing with the nebulousness of emotion.
I don't think it was intentional, but I like to think that it was intentional. This episode featured, I want to say, the fourth time that we have seen a member of the Sharon race on screen. And it was a throwaway shot. It was literally a pass, like the other times that we've seen this character show up. But again, I think in a way it subtly hints to the black and white nature of the episode.
Yeah, sure.
So, speaking of which, can we just talk about one of the major plot holes of this episode, which is Sam's configuration platform, which contained a hell of a lot of psychotropic simulations that Cask are apparently aware of: ketamine, cocaine, marijuana, whiskey. I thought that kind of took a little bit away for me, if I'm honest. I think there was a way of probably playing that out, because I literally paused it and wrote out a load of the items that were on that list, and I was like, "Oh, you've just took a little bit of the narrative away from me a little bit," and just, do you know what I mean?
No, James, we don't understand.
It just felt a little bit out of place. Now, I understand, obviously, it was set up to obviously support her getting absolutely rat-arsed in the club immediately, because what was it? She just flicked it, and then she instantly took 12 shots.
I would have gone to 11, but that's just because I put that joke in there.
I mean, I don't know how else he could have.
I get what you're saying. I saw it, just read my reading of it was just like, oh, that's just the program that Caleb installed in there. It was just like, oh, a drug program, and it'll have that probably would have made a bit more sense. I think. I think had they set that up a little bit more, because obviously they had him playing around with the settings. You know, he was changing the hair. Then she was hearing a marching band in her ears. I thought that was brilliant. Yeah, I thought that was very fun.
I think that would have been funnier is if they had called back to the TNG episode where the Enterprise has the interface with the Iconian probe, and suddenly the computer starts screwing up and it's playing Stars and Stripes Forever. That would have been good. Call back.
That would have been funny. Oh, that's very funny.
So, consensus, do we all agree that she can learn?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, 100%.
I think Star Trek is always consistent about digital photonic artificial beings can be human. And I mean, they're always a metaphor for like how we dehumanize people or things like that, like, you know, with Data being like related to like a slave race by Guinan way back in Measure of a Man. So like it's always like, and it probably speaks to, again, like the Black community aspect of this show here, of like, you know, that aspect of digital beings and how we dehumanize and how we sort of people are have to find themselves within a system that dehumanizes them quite often.
And that's kind of the point of this entire episode, is she's going from I'm this quirky photonic that's just kind of learning, to reaching a new plateau where she has an understanding by the end, and just gets to sit there and actually talk quietly to Sisko, who she's never met and only knows secondhand.
I think it actually goes back to episode 3, a really good callback to episode 3, when they are doing the unauthorized competition,
Calica game.
Yeah, the Calica game, and they basically shoot at the mascot, who they think is Occam, and it's actually Stam, and she's like, "I can make myself permeable, bitches.
I can make myself permeable, bitches."
Hey, that's cheating.
And I'm just like, that right there. I think that is a completely wonderful example of the fact that she picked up what they put down.
I was disappointed they didn't use the word bitch in this episode.
Well, I mean, hey, there's still
I'm photonic, bitch. Yeah.
I really think there's 5 more episodes to go, so you never know.
Never know.
All right, well, Patrick, why don't you go ahead and take us on to our next discussion point?
How does legacy shape identity across generations? Sam's deep dive into Sisko's history including personal records for one Jake Sisko, and boy, I've been waiting for that one, raises questions how myths, parents, and unfinished stories influence who we become, especially when fate and faith are involved. Which now's the best time, I think, to talk about the fact that we got Cirroc Lofton back. For 2 scenes.
Yeah. What a beautiful, and both beautiful scenes with him, especially that second one made me cry. I mean, I've already said a lot about it, but it was just, I just love the affirmation in that scene of Sam and who Sam is. Like the moment when she says you're amazing, and he instantly says you're amazing back. And like she's like I think theoretically she's reading a book and this is all in her mind, but it's like her imagining his affirmation of her, and this sense of just, again, I spoke about it earlier, but like the sense of how community passes through generations and how we hold our ancestors and they help inform us through our future. It's a very marginalized experience. Like Black community very much talking about it here. Trans community, queer community does that a lot too, about looking at our ancestors and who we draw from. And also with the surprise reveal that Tawny Newsome is playing Dax. Which I love.
God.
Which
I screamed.
Yeah, and I have to call out. I tell Tawny. I need to tell Tawny because it's like, girl, she wrote the episode, so I'm like, girl, you wrote yourself as Dax. I see what you wrote your fan fiction. I see how it goes. But thematically, it works really well. Thematically, it works really well because it's like Dax is a character who is literally carrying generational history, is living generational history. And ties all that in. So I loved her appearance in this as
beautifully
Dax.
done.
It was really well done. So I've already touched upon a lot of this stuff earlier, so I'll let other people talk.
Yeah, both.
There was a few that.
Go ahead.
No, it's all right, Patrick.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to talk about a few of the little Easter eggs that I saw when we got to the virtual Cisco Museum, which I loved the concept of that, of projecting an entire museum into the Academy. But there was a few things I snipped out. So the whole timeline that was woven over the walls as she was walking through, it went all the way back. It didn't even just go back as far as Cisco. It went that bit further. But there was snippets about history of New Orleans. Did anybody catch on the 2236 anti-food replicator movement?
No, I did not
see that.
Honestly, go back and pause it, and the amount of detail some of this goes on to. So obviously there was a big anti-food replicator movement that was
fascinating,
which goes back to Mr. Cisco, Ben's dad, obviously being an absolute staunch opponent of replicator, always fresh food. I loved that, and then there was bits about the Chosen One, the orb of the emissary. I loved that. Really, really loved that. And they didn't ruin it with up-to-date graphics either. They kept that as screen accurate from the original DS9 series. It
was a little better looking.
Yeah, it was a little better looking, but in a good way. It wasn't ruined by that, I think. And then, of course, Jake Sisko, which, again, it was beautiful actually seeing some of the... We almost got a sequel to what happened to Jake Sisko out of this episode, I think. You know, we know he became a really successful author. Anselm, I love that throwback to that. What's the episode called?
The Visitor?
The Visitor. That was a beautiful episode. It's one of my favorites out of Deep Space Nine.
I think my favorite episode of Star Trek. Period. I love the Visitor.
Really amazing. But I love the fact that they kept his character true to how his character developed out of that episode. There were so many little Easter eggs in this. It was just, honestly, I was like a little kid, beaming, smiling all the way through this episode.
Especially since it's so nice to see Deep Space Nine getting its flowers because like modern Star Trek recently, like they take a lot from Deep Space Nine. Like Section 31 is a whole thing from Deep Space Nine. Picard sort of took the season 3 took the changelings from Deep Space Nine for its final season. But like outside of that one episode of Lower Decks, Deep Space Nine, well, they've taken a lot from Deep Space Nine. There's not been a lot of time to like really honor Deep Space Nine, and I really like that this episode like has a beautiful sense of honoring Avery Brooks in specific, but Deep Space Nine as a whole and its place within Star Trek's history. It really was like a true love letter to that show, in a way of not just being like, look at all these Easter eggs and things that I love, which I think are really well handled. Like the Easter eggs in this episode are like very well done and very thoughtful, as you were saying, and also like thematically trying to bridge Deep Space Nine to something new, and that kind of ties into this whole theme that the whole episode is about, right? Like legacy and like what matters through legacy and generations, as we're talking about here. Like the episode itself is doing that within the Star Trek franchise, not just to Sisko the character, which I really like.
But I think the thing I loved the most from this episode is the fact that they came to the conclusion at the end that they didn't solve the mystery of what happened to Benjamin Sisko. And you know what, as a massive Deep Space Nine fan, I'm kind of glad they didn't.
Yeah, no, glad,
I'm happy with the way that it ended, and we'll come on to the ending ever so shortly, I think. Do we want to actually talk about that, or do we want to save that a bit more to the end, Lars? It's entirely up to you.
Let's save that one, because that one is really good. There were a couple points during that I thought, are they going to is Sisko going to show up? Is Sisko going to show up? And nope, and nope, and nope. And we never have. Hi, I'm Sisko. I'm old now, but I'm back from the wormhole. Hi. I
really love too. It also fixes the one major criticism that people have of that ending with Sisko. Because the one major criticism that people have of the ending of Deep Space Nine with Sisko is Avery Brooks was so adamant that he wanted to be a really kind, caring, compassionate father and present father to Jake Sisko. Because at the time, and even to this day, we don't get as much like representation of Black fatherhood being very supportive and very kind. We kind of have a lot of like, oh, they're deadbeat dads, or they run away, and it kind of continues this propaganda that we see in our culture a lot of like, oh, the Black community is not loving or caring, like they're a lot of deadbeat dads. It's very stereotypes of the Black community, and Sisko Avery Brooks wanted to eschew that. And it's such one of the most beautiful things about Deep Space Nine is you can see how tender Sisko is with Jake, like kissing him on the forehead a bunch, like holding him, and like being a very supportive father of what Jake wants to do. And so that's really a beautiful part of that show. But the one thing that people hated about the ending is that Sisko leaves and goes to the wormhole aliens, goes to join the wormhole aliens, the prophets, and leaves his wife and unborn child behind. And it's one of those things where it's like you had this whole thing that was very important, and then you still on the show of like him leaving his kid and not being present in his kid's life. And so this episode makes very clear, like you have Sirach Lofton saying like, oh yeah, he may not have returned, but he never actually left us. He was always there. I always felt his presence there. And it's kind of addressing that fact of like, yeah, he may have left, but he was still very present in our lives, which I really appreciate.
I think it was also highlighting the fact that this wasn't a conscious decision that Sisko ever made. It was, you know, they've talked about destiny a lot. His life was pretty much mapped out by the prophets. I loved the whole explanation around that, but I also love the fact that they made the point of Sisko as a person, as a human being, also at times when, no, fuck you, prophets, I'm doing it. I might get to the point that you're talking about, but I'll do it my way.
Yep.
The whole way they did this for me was just stunningly beautiful, and I haven't cried like that to a Star Trek episode in a very long time, and it pulled that out of me. It pulled on my heartstrings so much, and by far, without shadow of a doubt, I think this is going to be the favorite episode of a lot of people.
Yeah. Between this and last episode 4 and episode 5, I think are my two favorite episodes of the show. So, and I think they're really great. This episode especially for me, but yeah. I
think I'm going to watch this one again and again, and it's going to get better every time I watch it. Whereas the others, were good. Like the first episode, I was clicking with it perfectly. This one, I didn't click with as much the first time I watched it, probably because everybody had seen it, said, "Oh, this is gonna be the best. This is the best episode for sure." It's like, oh, it's building up too much.
Yeah, we oversold it. But
yeah,
realistically,
growing on me each time. The more I think about it, it's one of those that will grow and get better with age.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that I have been so critical of the Kurtzman era shows, with the exception of Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks. I mean, I guess you could say I've been exceptionally critical of Discovery. And I was initially concerned when this show was announced and they kind of explained that it was going to be effectively a sequel series to Discovery. I thought, oh dear. Oh, here we go. It's going to be another series where they're going to ram characters down your throat and you're going to be like, you love these characters because they're here. They're on this show. You love them. Well, I need to learn more about, no learning, love. That's it. But I was genuinely surprised. And every episode that I've watched so far, despite the fact that I may not have been going yes on every single moment of every episode, I have walked away from each one of them wanting to see another one, and that's the point.
It's not only that now, Lars. I mean, we're only halfway through the season, and the amount of character development that has gone into this so far,
incredible.
Pretty much all the major characters, we know a lot about them already.
Yeah.
And
versus
and it's
Discovery.
Yeah, apart from episode 1, because I still think episode 1 was like, oh my god, here's a load of characters, sensory overload. But I think they pulled that back from 2 and then 3, and then don't get me wrong, 4 was the whole character development for Jaden was just. But I think overall, I think this is one of those shows where you've got to watch it and then watch it again to fully appreciate a lot of what they've done here.
I just hope they don't Cybok the fuck out of, or sorry, excuse me. I hope they don't Cybok the fuck out of.
Oh, that he's like surprise brother
Big
or
vomit.
something to somebody.
But yeah, that part didn't bother me so much because I loved that. It was one of the few things I liked about Star Trek V was the fact that they had gone so far off reservation with the idea of what it was to be a Vulcan. But in Strange New Worlds, they teased it, like right at the very end of that episode, they reveal that the husband is Cybok, and we're like, oh, wait till that comes out, man. Wait till the next episode comes, and it's like,
then we got season 3.
Oh, I see yours.
Yeah, and now we're like, now to be fair, they did bring in, they brought in Giamatti in 2 episodes, but ultimately, I feel like it was just like a chess piece. Like, oh, let's move this here, and okay, and then it lets everything else kind of open up, and it gives us the direction we want to go in. But ultimately, when we talk about how the franchise's legacy affects this series, I don't know if many people get this, but the harder the series tries to have its own footing in this later timeline, the more they are either unintentionally or geniusly intentioning to link it back to other parts of the franchise. I mean, and we have the Dax character who is now part of the scenery. We have the Doctor who is been there since Voyager's mission, and we, to a lesser degree, but still just as relevant, we have Ake's character being part Lanthanite, who was around for all that, so she remembers all of this. So so the more that they boldly go forward into the future, the more they tie themselves to the rest of the franchise in a very awesome way.
Yeah, I agree. It's like it's again what I said earlier. It's not just relying on nostalgia, but bringing forward as living history. So this concept of like living history, like lives right now, and we hold it, but we shouldn't like let it dominate us. We like understand our scars. I think this is a wonderful phrase that I learned recently. Like, we understand our scars, but still reach for the stars. It's like we know where we came from. We understand the hurts and the pain that we came from. We're not erasing the past, but we're holding it and still reaching for something new. Whereas you see a lot of fascism is like, we want to return to the past, or we try to erase that the past happened and say like, oh, we weren't racist in the past, or like structural racism wasn't a thing, or none of that matters now. We're in a post-racial society. And like Deep Space Nine as a franchise is very much a show about like, no, those things that happened in the past, they still echo today. Like the way that Black people are treated still echoes in Cisco in the modern day. We may be doing better, but we need to remember that so we don't repeat it. And I think that this show is doing that with Star Trek as a franchise, doing that thematically, doing that even within Starfleet itself. Is like with Ake being like, I caused harm, took a kid from his mother, and like I need to remember that so I don't repeat those same mistakes. So it's just this evocation of pain and history and trauma, but the beauty that also comes with history and generations and the people who managed to get you here, and then moving forward from that. It's just so beautiful.
100%.
That being said, Jesse, why don't you go ahead and bring us into our last discussion point?
Well, this kind of talks about exactly what I was saying. Is destiny something you learn or something that you live? Between discussions of predetermined fate, the reveal involving Dax, and Sam's revelation that organics are more about being than knowing, the episode asks a very Trek question. Can purpose be taught or only experienced? Well, I'll just say, I've already touched upon this a lot, but I'll just say too, as a trans person, what I really love this episode for is like Sam getting to choose her own destiny. Like and I also love that she's not rejecting her mission from her makers, because a lot of like trans stories, and I think understandably so, are very much like, hey, screw you parents and what you told me I have to be, I'm going to choose my own way. And that's a very understandable thing, and it's because there's often a lot of abusive parents that try to tell trans people or queer people or anybody who to be. But there is also something to be said about people who are like, I understand, I think what I've been sort of like told is my mission is something that I still really love, but I need to pursue it in my own way, in my own time, and how I want to do it. And it's such a nuanced way to handle that, of like, she's not saying like, screw you parents, I don't want to help bridge our societies ever again, go away, fuck off. It was more,
even though she tells him that a little.
She does, but she says it in a way of like, I will check in, I will still do this mission, but I have to do it by being me. And I thought that was a really good thing about like, it's like you choose your own destiny, and she could choose maybe one day to walk away from the expectations placed upon her, but it is one of those things where like she's choosing to follow her own way through this mission, and I really like that.
Well, destiny and predetermined fate is something that Star Trek initially tried to tiptoe around.
Mm-hmm.
But and I think it's because they probably felt that it treaded too far into maybe organized religion, as because if we discuss it this way, we in some way, shape, or form are endorsing a particular type of organized religion. And when realistically, Gene Roddenberry went out of his way to keep that as neutral as possible. But one thing I think that they did really well, and of course, I mean, it goes without saying that this episode is very much the love letter to Deep Space Nine that needed to happen. I think it's really cool that they can represent the belief in predetermined fate and destiny, while at the same time exploring topics of faith and understanding, while at the same time making it a exclusively personal experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is something that they did as well on Deep Space Nine, and jumping over into the other series that ran at the time, Babylon 5. These were all series that explored religion in a future context, where you would have different religions in DS9, it was mainly exploration of the Bajoran religion. In Babylon 5, they explored a good chunk of the Earth religions, all the alien religions, and even a religion, the Foundationists, if I remember, Foundationalists, where they looked at all the religions to try to find the commonalities and all the ways that they were explained. This episode continues that tradition, definitely seeking to explore that.
I'm gonna pull a line from Voyager here, which is maybe it's not the destination that matters, it's the journey. And I think this very much kind of acknowledge the fact that there may be such a thing called predetermined fate, but the path is ambiguous and it allows for self-determination along that path. That's my key take from this.
I always balk at the idea of destiny or predetermined fate, just personally for like very obvious trans reasons and things like. Because usually people do that to like try to assign, like you have an assigned role for society, be it because of your gender, because of your birth, because of whatever. And I always get wary of shows when they do destiny storylines. I think Star Wars falls into that a lot. I also think prequel narratives tend to fall into that a lot. Like even Strange New Worlds kind of did a like Spock has got an important destiny sort of thing with that time travel episode with Pike in the season 1 finale. And so like prequel stuff tends to be like there's a path that we're on, and Star Trek has made the mistake of doing that in weird ways with like evolution a lot of the time, where it's just like, oh, there's a predetermined path for evolution that we're gone on, like the like episodes like Genesis or even Threshold, weirdly, of like there's a predetermined evolutionary path that we're all on. Or even episodes like the Prime. I'm blanking. I think Dear Doctor in Star Trek Enterprise, where like Phlox argues like, oh, this society has a natural path that we just need to let happen, so we're not going to give them the cure to this virus. So Star Trek has this sometimes like evocation of like there's a path for the universe that it goes on as like an evolution, and evolution is not a predetermined destiny path. But what I do like in terms of when we get to ideas of destiny and predetermined fate, it is when it talks about it as a conversation with like expectation and expectation placed upon people and what people are expected to be and how people have conversations and reacting to that. And I think when stories use destiny or fate as a way to talk about expectation, wherever it's coming from, society, culture, parents, friends, whatever, and use it as a metaphor for that, I think that that's a really good way to do that. And I think this episode kind of really plays with that in a really interesting way with Sam's character. So,
well, I'd like to kind of wrap up this particular discussion point with a clip from the episode, which is right at the end. And we've been kind of holding on to this one because I think I think this really does sum up what we've been saying in general, where Sam has to accept that she is a child of two different worlds, and just because that she wasn't created to believe or understand in a particular way doesn't mean she is incapable of doing such. So I'm going to go ahead and play that clip now.
Divine laws are simpler than human ones, which is why it takes a lifetime to be able to understand them. Only love can understand them. Only love can interpret these words as they were meant to be interpreted.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
that's still interesting.
That thank you, Avery, straight after it, I swear to God, I was just because we've heard all the stories about Hollywood turning the back on Avery loads of times. There's loads of anecdotes around the way Avery's been treated over the years, but I feel like that aspect of it was almost trying to right a wrong. Genuinely, that's the vibe I got straight off this. And it's acknowledgement that I think has been long overdue.
I agree. I think it is very much, in a small way, it's justice that is long overdue.
Yeah, Man deserves this. He did so much for Star Trek. He fought for in so many ways. Like, one of my favorite stories about Avery Brooks, I have two stories that I really love, is he directed the episode in Deep Space Nine, the episode where Jadzia kisses the other Trill woman. I forget the name of the episode. But it's the first, it's a very clearly the gay episode, right? Oh, we're gonna have two women kissing. And what they wanted to do, there was I think Entertainment Tonight had people on the set, and they were going to come in and be like, oh, we're going to take pictures of the first, the gay kiss in Star Trek. It's going to be a big thing. We'll make a big spectacle out of it and make it a very tokenistic. And Avery Brooks is like, no, you're not. I'm not letting you on my set. We're not going to make a spectacle out of this. We're normalizing this. It's going to be a normal moment of two women kissing. And it was just this it showcases solidarity between communities, right? I was talking so much about how Sisko meant a lot to the Black community, but he was very defensive of the people that he worked with, and also the communities that he was in community with and representing, the queer community. And so he was just so good at that. And so Avery Brooks, the man deserves his flowers, and deserves to just be given as much love as people like Janeway and Picard have been given, and Kirk have been given in Star Trek, and he's kind of been left out in a lot of cases recently. And I really like that he has given his flowers by, it should be noted, and I've said this earlier, by Tawny Newsome, who is also a Black woman, and so there's an element of this that is her giving her flowers, Sam the character giving Sisko flowers, played by a Black young girl as well. So it's again community and legacy and intergenerational stuff. It's all there, and it represented by that love for Avery Brooks. So yeah.
So let's go ahead and we'll deal with our final thoughts here. I think, Jessie, you summed up your final thoughts and takeaways
numerous times. So I've said
so we're going to go on to Patrick, and let's get your final thoughts and takeaways on this episode.
Yeah, this one, like I said, as I watched it the second time just prior to this episode, I kind of had to skip through a little bit of the end stuff. But yeah, as I look at this more, seeing how it tells these stories and how it really ties us into the legacy of DS9, which I'm going to say here is the best Star Trek series of them all, even with Lower Decks in existence. It's kind of a battle between those two, and definitely Captain Sisko being the best Starfleet captain of them all, no matter what we agreed to in prior episodes. Yeah, Sisko was absolutely the best. Did more for Sisko, and Avery Brooks did more for for Star Trek probably than any other captain and actor playing the captain. And this episode is probably a bigger and better love letter to that than even the DS9 episode of Lower Decks, which was a lot of eye candy and references, but not really about how important Deep Space Nine was. Mm-hmm. It was the backdrop for a couple of characters' other stories.
How about you, James?
This episode is my favorite of the series so far. So as an avid Deep Space Nine fan, this not only made me cry, it also gave me a tiny orgasm simultaneously.
Tiny.
I've never actually orgasmed and cried at the same time, so I will say tiny. Crygasm. Yeah, I'll crygasm.
No, I like that term. That's a good term.
That's a new word. You heard it here first, folks.
Crygasm.
But no, it's beautifully done. In the end, Sam went from an annoying character to quite an endearing one, and I look forward to seeing how this journey develops and progresses for Sam and the rest of them. But no, it's a beautiful episode. Loved every minute of it.
And for myself, I am on the same page as everybody else so far, insofar as that this is my favorite episode of the series to date. And I think a lot of it comes down to is because not only did we see a couple of wonderful stories kind of split off from each other, we did kind of gloss over it a little bit, but we did kind of hit on these points at the beginning, and that is the the relationship between Sam and practically everybody else, as well as the relationship between Ake and Alric,
Kelric.
Kelric, thank you. Kelric turned an important corner, because especially when they were sitting in like the turbo lift thing, and Ake is kind of just vibing, chilling out, laying on the bench, and they kind of go over things, and in the end I think he finally gets it. He finally gets her, and he laughs. I mean, that is like, I mean, that's the point where you see two antagonistic characters finally break through that barrier, and it's such a feel-good moment for me. I just love I hate the character on some level, because I feel like they just kind of shoved a stick up his ass and said, go for it. But ultimately they had to do that, because that's how we got the contrast with Ake's hippie-like thing. And of course, Holly Hunter seems to be really good at playing these types of characters. I bring up again her role in the show, Mr. Mayor. She played a similar type of free-spirited hippie character. And then she just did it well. So it's wonderful. And then the one thing I wanted to bring up, right, the last thought I had was, I mentioned it at the very beginning. Anybody recognize what Caleb was eating when Sam was
the banana hash?
No, that was Darum. Darum was eating the food at the very beginning, and she was talking about how he never remembers to check that the food is banana free. Of course, so that was funny. But Caleb himself was eating a jumja stick.
Oh, the jumja stick when he on the balcony.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. I actually wrote that down. God damn it. Yeah, I didn't realize it was going to be so chewy. I thought that was like an ice lolly style thing, from what I remember of seeing it in Deep Space Nine. It really surprised me that it was just like gelatin.
Yeah, but the funny thing is that it was just, one thing we as Star Trek fans we love callbacks to the things we love. Okay, and Patrick,
I love Lower Deck so much.
Exactly, that's what exactly as you said, Patrick. When they did the love letter to DS9 on Lower Decks, we loved it, because it connected something that we enjoyed to something we loved, and it just made it that much sweeter. And immediately, as soon as I saw that in the very beginning of the episode, I said, watch, this is going to be all about linking this series to DS9. And that's exactly what happened all the way along, while still continuing to develop the characters as they need to in an organic way. For me, absolute chef's kiss. That's our review of the 5th episode of Starfleet Academy. Did we get it right? Did we miss anything? Do you agree or disagree? Let us know.
Thank you for joining us here on Treknicity, where we wonder as we wonder. I already read. You didn't even write that for me. Where we wonder as we wonder through the Star Trek multiverse. I'm your host, Patrick.
I'm James.
I'm Lars, and joining us again has been the amazing, mystifying Jessie Earl.
Ooh, mystifying. It was great to be here. Thank you for dealing with my TED Talks.
We love it. We love it. You know it.
Yes.
Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Treknicity.com.
And as always, remember to rock out with your Spock out. We'll see you guys next time.